befallen his family emerged from the arched doorway. While I was in town, I ran into the mayor, Mother continued, wiping perspiration from her brow and upper lip. He said he was just on his way to our house with a special request. Philip, you'll never guess what he wanted. For heaven's sake, Suzanne, tell me what this is all about. General Charles de Gaulle is leaving Algeria and returning to France to form a provisional government. Of course, I know that, but what does it have to do with us? It seems that he will be stopping in Lebanon on his way to France and is coming to Zahli for some meeting or another. Really, exclaimed my father. I didn't know that Zahli was such an important place. Perhaps he's coming to enjoy the delicious food at the charming cafes on the shores of the Berdouani River, the Wadi. Now my parents had my full attention. At the age of 5, the name of Charles de Gaulle meant nothing to me. It was mention of the Wadi that caused me to listen intently. The Wadi was my favorite place in Zahli. Wadi means valley. This Wadi, a narrow slot between 2 mountains with a river flowing through it, was a cool haven even on the hottest days. Its thriving cafes and restaurants were always filled with happy revelers, delicious food, and good music. Near the entrance, vendors sold ice cream, balloons, candy, toys, and all sorts of baubles. For us children, an outing to the Wadi was a rare treat, and I hoped that the conversation between my parents would eventually lead us there. Or maybe, my mother had replied dryly, he is coming here because Zahli is so deeply involved in French-Lebanese politics. But I haven't told you the most exciting news. There will be a reception for General de Gaulle at Hotel Adri, and the mayor wants our little girl to present the general with a bouquet of flowers. My father groaned inwardly. He had reason to groan. The war had depleted the family finances, and he knew that this great honor would be expensive for him. Besides, my father was an American citizen. He was not enthusiastic about honoring a French general who was not popular in the United States. Nevertheless, father simply sighed and went along with the plan. To do otherwise would disappoint my mother and bring shame on the family. For the next week, Zahli was abuzz with excited anticipation. As word spread from person to person, a mood of energetic excitement floated up the slope of the mountain and into our home. For me, excited anticipation was mixed with anxiety. I was not exactly sure what would be expected of me. The only one who seemed indifferent was my father. His quiet demeanor calmed me. On the appointed day, I was thoroughly scrubbed, my hair washed and combed into Shirley Temple curls. I was dressed in a simple blue dress trimmed in white, with white Mary Jane shoes on my feet, and a gigantic white taffeta ribbon anchored to my curls. I was ready to go. The blue cotton of my favorite dress felt soft and cool against my skin. The clip that held my ribbon together gripped my hair tightly, yet did not hurt. I felt pretty and proud. Outwardly, I looked calm, but a flutter of anxiety filled me. Leaving my brothers at home, my parents and I started our trip to town. Any other day, we would have walked. Today, in order to stay clear of the dust of the street and the heat of the sun, we rode in a taxi. It took no more than 10 minutes for the taxi to navigate the narrow, winding streets from our house to the hotel. Before we knew it, we were climbing the broad stone steps that led to the hotel entrance. And now I'd like that picture, Sarah, please. The picture of the hotel, please. Built in the early 20th century. Sarah, can I have the picture of the hotel? Thank you. Built in the early 20th century with stone walls, a red tiled roof, and a fountained courtyard, the Hotel Adri was and still is a fine example of traditional Lebanese architecture. Mother took my hand and led me slowly across the marbled courtyard, my shoes clicking against its hard, sun-washed surface, my heart beating hard with excitement and nerves. The warm feel of Mother's hand, the burbling sound of the fountain, the beautiful sight of purple petunias and the hydrangeas in the flower beds soothed me. I forgot my jitters. My parents and I made our way across the terrace. We passed through an arched doorway and entered the reception hall. After walking a short distance and turning right, we found ourselves in a very large reception room filled with people. It seemed to me that the entire population of Zahli had squeezed into that hotel reception room. The mayor was there, of course, standing proudly in his freshly pressed business suit. The rest of the crowd, what seemed like hundreds of people, blended into a hazy blur of faces. The air was heavy with the heat of the day and the exhalations of the crowd. Thankfully, a breeze wafted through the open windows, bringing with it the sweet fragrance of jasmine. At the front of the room, a tall, powerful-looking man faced the crowd. Thank you. He wore a khaki suit with a black belt encircling his waist. A long, muscular neck supported a proud face with a prominent nose. That must be General de Gaulle, I thought. Suddenly, I was nervous again. General de Gaulle was making a forceful speech in a voice more tenor than baritone. My entire life, I had listened to Mother and her friends speaking in French, so I had no difficulty recognizing, though not understanding, the language. A self-important looking man thrust a bouquet of flowers into my hands. It was a gigantic, artful arrangement of roses, white carnations, and deep blue iris, all tied with a blue ribbon. Mother whispered in my ear, "The man who is speaking is General de Gaulle. When he finishes, hand the flowers to him and say, 'Ahlan wa sahlan,' to welcome him." The speech ended. I started to walk toward the general. The lovely fragrance of roses and carnations was having a strange effect on me. A tickle in my throat, followed by a loud "Hachoo!" as I sneezed. My nose started to run. I never got to say "Ahlan wa sahlan." Tears of mortification and sorrow slid down my cheeks. I looked foolish in front of the entire town. I had disappointed Mother and Father. Seeing my distress, the general took 1 or 2 steps toward me. He smiled kindly at me as he reached into his pocket. Bending down, he used a large white handkerchief to gently dry my eyes and nose. Then, graciously accepting the flowers, he kissed my cheek, saying, "Merci, ma petite, les fleurs sont très jolies." And that is my story. So if you have any questions or comments or anything you'd like to say, you can, Sarah, you want to?
There's a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Kim wouldn't know.
Do you have a picture of you with de Gaulle?
No, I wish I did. I wish I did, but I guess no one thought to take a picture. I think my mother left her camera at home that day.
Mouna, that is a beautiful story.
Thank you.
Imagery is just wonderful. I could smell the jasmine. I could see you in that little dress. I could see the hair clip. Everything was beautifully delivered and beautifully written. Very touching.
Thank you for that.
Lovely.
Appreciate it.
Mouna, thank you very much. Great story, well told.
Oh, Don.
It's a privilege and a pleasure to work with you.
Thank you. I'm not sure it would have happened without your help.
I'm glad I could help a little. And the one thing I would want to say to you at this point is keep writing your stories. This is a great one. I suspect there are other good ones, so do not stop.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you for your encouragement.
Mona,
Hi, Erin.
hi. How did I not know this story about you after all the years I've known you and our book group discussions? I know about some other, the author in your family, but I had never heard this. And I can picture it so well, and I can see you in those curls. But what I also liked about it was how you brought your mother and your father into it with their little different views of the event itself. And of course, you as a child trying to make sense of all of it. So I'm really glad you chose to write it and to share it. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. Appreciate that. So,
Mouna, hi, Jerry.
hi, Jerry. Hi.
Actually, Jerry Welch. For some reason, my last name
Yes,
is not.
I know Jerry Welch.
I know you know.
I said,
That was a wonderful story. It's amazing how well you remember all of those details. It clearly was a
oh, confession. Confession. Of course, at the age of 5, I didn't remember everything. So I tried to be as faithful to, I remembered some things, and I tried to be as faithful to the event as possible. And I did a little research, and then I used my imagination to fill in the places that weren't, there.
Well, it's a wonderful job.
Oh, thank you, Jerry. I appreciate that.
So Mona, I just want to tell you, as somebody who knew your mother,
Oh,
I can
hi,
see
Shelley.
very much. Hi. So I loved how you talked to her, and I did know your mother very well. So I can just see her getting so excited over you, the goal coming. And
Yes.
yeah, our mothers were very much Francophones. So, and it was the time in Lebanon too.
Oh, yes. France was very much
Yeah.
very involved. I mean, that's why de Gaulle came to Sahel.
Right.
And actually, that picture with the bishop was taken, I don't know if you read the label under it, it was taken in 1941 when France had actually freed Lebanon from Germany. And I guess Germany had occupied Lebanon and French forces had.
Yeah, I never knew that. I just knew that Lebanon was under the French mandate, but I never knew that Germany had occupied Lebanon.
Yeah, they did. I didn't know that either till I reached out to my cousin Charlie, and I had found a photograph of Charles de Gaulle because I wanted to put a photograph of him on this. And the only thing I could find was something being sold, and it had these stamps on it. And I wanted to use it, but I was afraid I would get into trouble legally. So I reached out to my cousin Charlie, who is the keeper of all things family and history. And he said, I have a picture that you can use. And so he told me that was taken in 1941 when France had liberated Lebanon from the Germans. So.
Mouna.
Hi, Ron. That's my brother-in-law, Ron Anderson.
Mouna, was your brother Najee with you that day at the hotel?
No, the boys were too young. And we did have, as most middle-class Lebanese families did and still do if they can afford it. My mother had a cook. She had 2 maids. She had, we didn't have a chauffeur because we didn't have a car, but she always had someone to take care of us, nursemaids and a governess. So it was easy to leave the little guys at home.
We have a comment by Dave Horton. If you can unmute yourself.
Hello, Mouna.
Hi, David.
I too was able to follow you from your home to the hotel, and to sense what the city was as you moved through it. Really delightful. My question may have been answered, which really was what might have been the postscript to your meeting with de Gaulle. How did you feel about it when it was all over? You may have answered it when you talked about you had to think a bit about it. But I'm wondering what, looking back on it, maybe not looking back on it when you were that age, but when you're looking back at it now, what might it have meant to you, or what was your greatest impression?
It's been very exciting to have that memory of my past. At the time, I was extremely upset because I just did not, I mean, it was the whole town was there, and it was a humiliating experience, and I didn't want to, my parents always had high expectations of me, so that added an extra element of anxiety to the whole thing. But later on, it was just a wonderful memory, and what a great man, to
exactly
be so sensitive to a small child's needs. And wow, to say that de Gaulle used his handkerchief to dry my eyes. I mean, yay.
Thank you, Mouna, very much.
Thank you for being here, David. I really, it really means a lot.
Thank you.
We have a question from Judy Cole.
Oh, yes. Hi, Judy. Where are you?
Hi, Mouna. You are a gifted writer.
Oh, thank you.
And it would have been a wonderful story anyway, but the ending was absolutely charming and unexpected, and just was a frosting on the cake. I have a question about how you were 5 then. And I know this is a big question, but just briefly, when did you and your family come to the United States?
Mm-hmm. Well, we came to the United States after the Second World War. My father, who went there to find a bride, got married, and he liked it so much he kept delaying leaving. And then the war broke out, and they were stuck there, which of course delighted my parents because they loved the lifestyle and the climate and the people and everything. So it was after the Second World War ended, and I was 7, 1946, and that's when we left. We had to leave. My father had a choice. He could have stayed, but he thought that my brothers had nothing to do with me, but he thought my brothers would have better opportunities in this country than in Lebanon. So we came here. And that's another story.
Keep writing.
Thank you, Judy. Appreciate it.
And Mouna, you've gone back many times over the years, haven't you, to visit?
I have gone back, yes. Yeah. And Eileen came once when I was there. We had a great time. So she wanted to, what? Go ahead, Sarah.
We have a question from Susan Whitfield.
Oh, hi, Susan.
Hi, Mouna.
Good to see you.
For inviting me to listen to your story. It was wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm glad you explained about not remembering all of it in detail, because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how can she remember all this as a 5-year-old? You did a wonderful job.
Thank you. Maybe I should have let everyone think I did remember all that. They would have been so very impressed.
Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
If we could use the feature of raising hands in the participants list at the lower, at the end of the list, you will see the raise hands. In that way we can, I can call your name.
Okay.
Oh, I think Brenda has a question. Go ahead, Brenda.
So Mouna, I'm just curious about your parents' reaction after all of this. So they too had to kind of flip from being humiliated and nervous about what was happening, and then seeing the general reach out with his handkerchief. What did they say to you afterwards?
I have no recollection whatever, but everyone was very kind, you know, everyone was kind, because of course they understood that it was an allergic reaction. There was nothing, I couldn't help it.
You were 5.
I felt bad, but everyone was very kind, as I recall.
Did everybody in the town then kind of refer to you? Did people talk about it?
I don't know. We
Yeah.
were pretty isolated in that house. We children were. My parents weren't. But my mother tried to keep us isolated from any germs. So we didn't come into contact with many people in town.
I'll just say, Mona, thank you.
Oh, thank you, Mary Jane.
Thank you. Lovely story. I wish I was there with you, but in Lebanon. But
well, maybe someday we can go together, and we can bring Alice with us. I'm sorry, I didn't get your.
Go visit the churches and the hotel. Yeah.
Okay. Well, there are plenty of churches to visit. Believe me.
Thank you.
We have a question from Don. If you can unmute yourself, Don.
Actually, it's from Helen.
From Helen.
Hi, Mona. Thank you so very much. I mean, there are just many things that I'm thinking about. It makes me want to visit Lebanon and, and be in that village and see what it was like and what living there was like. I come from a family where the girls just didn't dress up very much, but I really wanted to be in that blue dress. I mean, that was perfect. And I just loved your description of that. And then I just want to echo what someone else said. I mean, when you think of General de Gaulle doing that, which ultimately made it okay, the graciousness, simplicity, just very straightforward, meeting you and meeting your needs. That's a wonderful kind of leadership. And I think I will remember that forever.
Well, it's very interesting because he had a reputation for being arrogant. In fact, the British and the Americans did not like him at all because they thought he was arrogant, and they wanted to govern France as a mandate. And of course, he was not going to go along with that. And they, in their arrogance, they put a label on him. But yes, I think it takes a great man to do something like that.
I'm sure he was arrogant in some ways. I mean, how could he have gotten where he was? But to know right away exactly what to do and be there for you.
Well, in my research, I learned that he had 3 children, 2 of them daughters, who were probably 9 or 10 years older than I. And perhaps I reminded him of them because I do have a French look. I have the French coloring and maybe, but anyway, it was a very gracious thing to do.
It certainly was. Thank you.
I have a question.
Anybody else has a question or a comment for Mona?
I have a question.
Is that Riva?
Yes.
Carol has one, I think.
Oh, hi, Riva. I see you made it back. Did you have a good meeting with your friend?
Yes, thank you. My question, maybe you covered this, but how was your family chosen, or how were you chosen as the bouquet bearer?
Oh, it's because my mom, she was so loved by, she traveled in the upper circles of society of Saturday.
Thank you.
That was why. I had nothing to do with it.
Very lovely description. Thank you.
Samuel?
The name is confusing. It's actually Camille and Jane.
Camille, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Jane is Mona's cousin, actually.
Hi, Camille. Yeah, Jane's my first cousin. Our mothers were sisters.
And yeah, the story is beautiful, Mouna. I mean, it really is. I really think you should send it to the French museums. Send it to the de Gaulle dynasty. I mean,
sure. Thank you, Camille.
The whole concept of him doing that changes your whole picture of de Gaulle, because as you said, he was known as the tough general and so on and so forth. And that touch of kindness was unbelievable. Mm-hmm. I'm surprised you hid that story from us for all these years.
Well, it's been hiding from me as well. I hadn't written it at all until recently. So.
You're a beautiful writer, Mona. Keep writing.
Oh, thank you, Jane. Thank you.
I think Carol Miller has a question.
Okay, if you can unmute yourself, Carol. I don't see the.
Unmute yourself.
Oh, hi, that's Elaine. I see Elaine. Is it Elaine or is it Carol who's wants to speak?
Carol, tell Carol to unmute herself. We can't hear you, Carol.
And I can't.
So can you unmute everybody temporarily so Carol can say what
I'm unmuted.
She did it.
I'm unmuted now. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi,
Carol.
Hi. I just want to thank you for that beautiful incident in your life. I wondered how, after you did that, how was life for you in the community?
And in Zahle?
In other words, did people say, oh, that's the girl who sneezed when she saw?
No, because my mom was so protective of us. We just didn't
go. You didn't see anyone?
Much, only occasionally to go to the photography shop to have that picture taken, or once in a while we would go to the Wedi, but the Wedi, they had all these vendors outside selling ice cream and candy. We were never allowed to eat any of that stuff because my mother deemed it unsanitary. As far as I know, they may have talked to my mother, but to my knowledge, they never said anything to me, so I don't know. There may have been some envy among the friends of my mother who had daughters my age, but I don't know what happened. I don't know any of it.
It would be interesting to see if anyone remembered all that.
I doubt it, seriously. In fact, I looked high and low for anything that would tell me that de Gaulle was in Zahle at that particular time, and nothing. And my cousin Charlie, who is a scholar and a historian, he said he didn't remember seeing anything about de Gaulle in Zahle in 1944. And he said, that does not mean that it didn't happen. It just means it didn't get recorded. So.
Your precious, precious moment.
Yes, absolutely. Gary, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to commend you on both a delightful story and also on your writing. I felt like I was there with you.
Oh, that means so much. Thank you.
Walking across the, I wouldn't have been wearing heels or anything, but I felt like my feet were on the floor.
Good thing.
So it was really great. It was delightful. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Gary. Appreciate that.
And David Horton has another question or comment. David?
Yes. Mona, other than the opportunity to work with the eminent Don Cohen, what was your motivation, or what was your motivation to do any writing at all in say any portion of a memoir? What gave you that idea, or this help you make the decision to write, period, and then also to write about that particular piece, perhaps? But anyway.
There have been so many interesting events in my life that I felt it important to put them down in writing as a legacy for my children and grandchildren. And the reason, people say you never told us about the story, it's because I was writing it and in very rough draft, and they weren't ready for people's eyes, for anyone outside the family. And so, but there are more stories, and Don has given me the motivation to go ahead and try to pretty them up a bit.
Oh, wonderful. Might you self-publish, Mona? They put them in
it's too soon. It's too soon.
Oh, eventually, hard bind them so that they're not lost.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, David.
Really, yeah.
I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mona, very much.
Thank you all for being here. It's great. I'm just so excited that you're all here to hear my story.
Did Adriana get out? I don't know if we have any more questions or comments from participants. I don't think so. I don't see anybody else raising their hands.
Oh, hi. Hi.
Mona, I apologize. didn't get here in time to hear it. Will it be available? Is it recorded somewhere so I can hear the story later? Or
Oh, it is being recorded, but if you don't get it recorded, I'll send you the actual story and the pictures if you want.
Thanks, Mona. Thank you. Congratulations.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Jenny.
Bye-bye.
So I do want to mention that the talk has been recorded and it will be posted on the channel, the YouTube channel from First Parish in Lexington. It will take a day or two in order to get posted on there. So I will be sending the link to Mona so she can share it to all her friends and also to people in the parish. So if we don't have any more questions or comments for Mona, I just want to thank everybody for being here, and especially Mona for sharing a wonderful story with us. Thank you very much, Mona.
Thank you, Sarah, for your help.
Thank you.
Everything. It was
Thank
good to
you.
see everybody. Oh, hi.
All right, we will be ending now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.